Hey guys, how's it going? It's Space Cowboy here. Welcome back to the channel with another video for you guys here today. As we know, the 2024 season's been a train wreck for the Dallas Cowboys. They look like one of the worst teams in all of football with or without their starting quarterback, and things don't look to be getting any better. Looks like they're going to be picking in the top 3 this year, but I don't really care. We're here to talk about 2025 and beyond. We're going to be doing this over a series of videos over the next couple of weeks as the season continues to come to a close and really figure out where the Cowboys are going to be drafting. Now, we do understand that there's probably going to be some coaching changes in 2025, particularly at the head coaching position. This is where we're going to start our series of discussions when it comes to the following year, as that's going to be the tone setter for the Dallas Cowboys. We know that teams are built from the top down if you've been watching me for quite some time, and one of the key things that needs to happen is Jerry Jones needs to properly set the tone, which he's not been able to do since he's been a GM. Maybe when he began, but that's besides the point. The big thing is that the Dallas Cowboys are probably going to need a new head coach. So we're going to go through some possible scenarios, what you as fans need to be aware of when it comes to their searching process, so you don't get disillusioned or get your hopes up for guys that are not going to come here. So we're going to go through the previous coaches that the Cowboys have hired and look at the common themes that we've seen there. And we're going to talk about some possible candidates that you should be aware of as we go through the cycle. So if you can hit the like button, that'd be greatly appreciated. Subscribe if you're new and hit that notification bell as well. Thank you so much for your support. So the first thing we need to do is set the tone of what the Cowboys under Jerry Jones, and if you want to include Stephen Jones in there, that's fine. But what have these guys have done to bring guys in to run this football program, right? So taking a look at my notes and the coaches that Jerry has hired since he's been with the Cowboys, I'm not going to include Jimmy Johnson or Barry Switzer in this case. I'm looking for anybody outside of the Super Bowl contending portion of the Cowboys because that's really what you want to keep an eye out on as we're looking at what they've done over the past 30 years. So looking at the notes here, so you have Chan Gailey. He was a hotshot OC out of Pittsburgh that they brought in, bright mind that they thought, and they let him go after 2 seasons. You then go to Dave Campo, a guy that's been with the team for a long time at that point, was your defensive coordinator. You promote him to head coach. He was with the team for 3 years. No real success there, as we know. Next, you move to Bill Parcells, an outsider who people thought wouldn't get along with Jerry Jones. And so you look at where they're at right now, and you're kind of seeing the comparisons with some candidates, and one in particular, which we'll talk about in a moment. He was with the team for 4 seasons, and you saw 2 playoff berths out of him with the team. You then go to the next guy in Wade Phillips. The Cowboys had 2 playoff appearances with him, and then on top of that, been with the team for 4 years. And then finally, you get to Jason Garrett, hotshot OC that was promoted internally, and he was with the team for 10 years. And I also should add with Wade Phillips, a guy with head coach experience in previous spots as well. And then you get to Mike McCarthy, a guy that has head coach experience, and he's now on his 5th year with the team. Now, with this information in mind, we can determine that the Cowboys, particularly Jerry Jones, has a particular type when it comes to having a head coach. 1, a hotshot OC. 2, someone that's been with the team for quite some time for being an internal promotion. 3, someone with a lot of head coaching experience. And 4, that one-off outsider. Now, we do have enough to really see all of these scenarios playing out, and we have people already out there in the field that the Cowboys can choose from. So let's talk about the scenarios, and the first we're going to go over is an unlikely scenario, but something you should brace for just in case. Again, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but Mike McCarthy gets a 1 or 2 year extension due to how this year went. We see how the Cowboys have been over the past couple of seasons, 12-5. And I've come out and said that they need to move on from Mike McCarthy, and I still hold myself to that. But with Jerry Jones, he could look at how this year has gone and just say, hey, we've been rattled with injuries. We haven't been playing well, and I think that Mike deserves 1 more year so we can evaluate him, which all that would do is kick the can down the road in 2025, which I hope they don't do. But considering how they've moved, they've refused to fire him mid-season, which we know he's not going to do unless something egregious happens. But then again, it doesn't look like they have any plans to. But looking at how they've made trades, the one trade they made was for Jonathan Mingo, but how they moved in free agency. It could be that, hey, Mike, we're going to let you run it back for one more year, but we'll move some things around. Now, with that, don't think that's going to happen, but we should keep that on the table depending on who's out there. Now, as for who I would want, I've already talked about it ad nauseum, and that is Ben Johnson from the Detroit Lions. It's clear as to why I would want him as a head coach here in Dallas. He's young, innovative, understands the league at this point in time, comes from a coaching tree that's been very successful, which I'm talking about the Bill Parcells coaching tree, where Dan Campbell has originated from. And I think that you would want someone with that kind of mentality and that culture to come from that and come here to try and manifest that would be huge. But again, do I think it's going to happen? No, I don't think that Ben Johnson wants to deal with the circus here, and also understanding how politics are at play here on a football level. I don't think anybody wants to come here unless you're absolutely crazy. But then again, Cowboys head coaching job is a pretty coveted position, right? Like manager of the Yankees or head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, things like that. But let's talk about other scenarios that can happen that are more grounded in reality. Okay, so starting things off with a name that you should be familiar with. It's Kellen Moore from the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, that Kellen Moore that we all know and love, right? I had a feeling that he would be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys before he was subsequently removed as the OC, and he went to the Chargers, and then he went to the Eagles, so he's been doing some lateral moves. But I think if the Cowboys are looking for a young hotshot guy, it won't be Ben Johnson they look at. It'll be Kellen Moore. And I think that we had an idea that that's a guy they wanted, and I think that it's going to be like Jason Garrett all over again. They knew that he was going to be the guy. They think he's going to be this new, innovative young dude, but he's not. I mean, I really don't think Kellen Moore would succeed here as a head coach. I don't think he would. Then again, I could be wrong, but I just don't see it. I think that it would be like the Jason Garrett hire all over again. I mean, it doesn't matter what coach you bring in as long as Jerry's doing his thing. So this seems like a stupid video, but we're still going to have topics as to what is happening with the team, right? So keep in mind on Kellen Moore, and I will say that conversations I've had behind the scenes with people that have worked in the Eagles organization, there have been people that have said that he has been keeping an eye out on the Dallas opening and to see if that could be his next promotion, being the head coach, as he's made several lateral moves and people have been in communication with him. So just keep that in mind. From Dallas I'm referring to, so don't be shocked. The next guy, Mike Zimmer. Again, when it comes to imitation, Jerry Jones likes to do cheap stuff. And shout out to Cowboys Blog because he pointed this out in his video. And I think I've said it before, but still, he's the first one that I've seen mention this. Is that Jerry Jones likes to make cheap imitations because he thinks he's getting hip with things, right? Now, if Mike Zimmer becomes the next head coach, this would be an imitation of Dan Quinn being hired as the next Cowboys head coach. Why? Because they see the success that's happening in Washington. Oh, if we promote our DC, we'll have the same kind of success. Now, historically, Dan Quinn has had hot starts with his new team, and they've just kind of fizzled out. So I don't know how things are going to go from there, but I wouldn't be shocked. You know, hey, we brought in Mike Zimmer to get ready to build up this team, and then we're going to put him in as the next head coach and be a bridge to the next guy or something like that. This would be like a Dave Campo-like hire where you're promoting someone that's been with you internally. Now, granted, if we're talking about long-term, he's been with the team from the 90s, 2000s, etc., so there's that. But again, I think that Mike Zimmer wouldn't shock me in the slightest. Now, looking at my notes here, the next guy you need to keep an eye out is Bill Belichick. This would be the outsider hire. Yes. So, as we know that Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick, they come from the same, tree, right? And so we talk about, that connection. And I think that wouldn't shock me in the slightest. Hey, let's go get the greatest coach of all time. And I think that Bill Belichick still wants to coach. He wants to break Don Shula's record, I would hope. Unless he's been doing a lot of media stuff. So I wouldn't be shocked if this is preparation or maybe he's just enjoying the media stuff and he doesn't want to coach anymore. But keep an eye on Bill Belichick, because as we know, Mike McCarthy took the year off, and then the Cowboys went and hired him. Same could happen there. So don't want to just dwell on that. I wouldn't be a fan of that because it feels like a retread, but don't be shocked if that's it. Now, this is a name that would be so funny. It fits the mold of an outsider, cheap imitation, but we love him as a player. Jason Witten. Yes, Jason Witten, the guy that's coaching high school football right now. I would not be shocked knowing how Jerry has talked highly of him and reminds him, he reminds me of Dan Campbell, a guy that was drafted under Bill Parcells, played under Bill Parcells, and has just started coaching at a high school level. I mean, do I think Witten could be a good coach? Yeah, but he needs more experience. But it would be funny, man, if they were to hire him as the next head coach. But do I think that's going to happen? Maybe. That would be like the outsider that we wouldn't expect, but wouldn't be surprised if that makes any sense. I don't want to, try to hit two sides of the coin there, so to speak. But those are the four guys you want to keep an eye out on in the process. Now, there were two names that have been circled around, and you should keep an eye out on as well, but these are like outside chances this happens, and those two are John Gruden and Deion Sanders. Do I think Deion Sanders is going to come to the NFL? Maybe, but I don't think at this point in time. If they drafted Shador, maybe, I don't know, because the thing is that if the predication is I'm only coming here if you draft my son, I think the thing is that then that would be a foregone conclusion that's happening. And so, like, they're not going to be like, I'll come if you are going to draft him, or you draft him and then I'll get hired. Like, they're not going to do that. But I've seen crazier shit with this team. As for John Gruden, he looks like he's trying to get back into coaching. I think that he has a cult of personality that many fans want to have on their team, and I think that when you look at what he did with the second stint with the Raiders before that whack shit happened, they were moving in the right direction. But with that, do I think he gets a second shot? I don't know. I don't know if Jerry would want to go after him, but I think that's where we're going to end it here. Those are the names that you should keep an eye out on as we continue this process, as we continue this season, and then the scenarios, but we'll revisit this conversation as we get closer to the end of the season and we hear rumors. But we'll have another video later talking about the free agency moves that the Cowboys should look at re-signing guys and who's on the market, all that other stuff. We'll talk about that in the next one in a couple weeks. So with that, guys, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.